House to investigate delayed pension payments by Peter. Access to finance. House moves to establish Entrepreneurship Development Bank. And House passes for second reading bill for the establishment of Electoral Offences Tribunal in Nigeria. Hello, glad to know you've been waiting to join me on You and Your Reps. I'm Victor, welcome. The House of Representatives has expressed concern over allegations that federal pensioners under the Pension Transitional Arrangement Directorate, PTAD, have not been paid for 9 months. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports that a resolution to investigate the issue has now been passed.
Those to appear before the House of Representatives Committee on Pensions and Public Service Matters to provide explanation on the delayed payments of pensions and gratuity are the head of the Civil Service and Accountant General of the Federation, the Director General of the National Pension Commission and Executive Secretary of Pension Transitional Arrangements Directorate PTAD. The motion was from Representative Saja Sogun.
The failure of the Pension Transitional Arrangement Directorate PTAD to pay pensioners monthly pensions and gratuities based on technological glitches amounts to gross incompetence and ineffectiveness on the part of PTAD.
The House has urged the federal government to ensure that the case against Senator Ike Ekweremadu in the United Kingdom conforms to the rule of law as enshrined in the European Convention on Human Rights.
By doing a thorough investigation, by not subjecting Senator Ike Ekweremadu to the court of public opinion before this matter is thoroughly investigated.
The law deals with reasonable doubt, beyond all reasonable doubt. Even though we are not talking about conviction, the law also deals with odi otaram pattern, presupposing that you need to hear the other side.
At the heart of this matter, there are human beings and fellow citizens whose lives have taken a turn none of us will ever wish for ourselves. I ask the Nigerian High Commission to avail Senator Ekweremadu and his family all necessary defense and support.
Meanwhile, House members have lent their voice on the need for collective efforts to tackle the menace of open defecation in Nigeria following a motion from Sada Soli, while the motion from Suleiman Gumi urging authorities to stop attacks in some parts of Zamfara state was adopted.
Nigeria is at the brink of becoming the #1 country with the highest number of people in the world practicing open defecation.
These armed bandits move around in hundreds on motorcycles during the day, carrying out mayhem and sometimes spend about 2 days at a particular point.
Bills passed at second reading are the bill to establish Federal University of Agriculture Ibadan, Oyo State, sponsored by Stanley Olajide, bill to establish Anatomy Council of Nigeria from Tonko Sununu, bill to establish Federal College of Creative Arts in Yanagwa from Preye Oseke, and bill to establish Federal College of Crop Science in Liri, Kaduna State, forwarded from the Senate for concurrence.
Meanwhile, a legislation that seeks financial inclusiveness for young people in Nigeria through the establishment of Entrepreneurship Development Bank has passed second reading at the House of Representatives.
The bill, jointly sponsored by Benjamin Kalu and Olalekan Afolabi, contains provisions that will make easy access to finance for small businesses from the Entrepreneurship Development Bank in the form of medium and long-term loans.
Financial inclusion of the youth has a ripple effect in curing poverty and other indices of the SDG.
Other bills passed at second reading include bill to establish Federal College of Nursing and Midwifery in Delta State, sponsored by Thomas Eritomi, bill to establish Federal College of Education Technical Ogun State, sponsored by Isiaka Ibrahim, and the bill from House Leader Alhassan Adudugwa, seeking amendment to the Education Correspondence Colleges Accreditation Act. Plenary featured the adoption of resolutions to investigate oil spills and abandoned oil wells and subsidy of petroleum products from 2017 to 2021.
Nigeria has probably one of the worst oil spill records in the world, with over 4,119
auspiced between 2015 and 2021.
The NNPC uses 65 million to 100 million liters per day to determine subsidy as recovery from NNPC's monthly reports to the Federal Allocation Committee, FAC.
House members have urged government agencies to assist victims of flood disaster in Ibadan, which destroyed lives and property following a motion from Stanley Olajide.
If urgent action is not taken immediately to address the flooding situation in these areas, in Ibadan Northwest Southwest Federal Constituency, the communities could be completely wiped out, leaving them with no place to live, similar to what we had in the Omiyale situation.
The lawmakers also urge relevant authorities to curb attacks in parts of Adamawa State and address communal clashes between communities in Cross River State. Meanwhile, House Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila has inaugurated an ad hoc committee to investigate duplication of functions among ministries, departments and agencies of government in order to have them streamlined.
Establish areas of mergers, synergies and justification of the existence of some of the established ministries, departments, agencies, boards and corporations. This committee is expected to come up with solutions to the apparent continuous conflict of functions and avoidable bickering among the established ministries, departments and agencies, resulting in ineffectiveness, inefficiency and redundancy in the government workforce.
Our task is different from that of Orosonya Committee. Their major concern was to reduce the cost of governance. Ours is to merge and, if need be, scrap some in order to bring about efficiency.
The exercise will chart a new course for the civil service.
In a bid to further clean up Nigeria's electoral process, the House of Representatives has passed for second reading a bill that seeks the establishment of Electoral Offences Tribunal in Nigeria. Now, this bill also seeks the establishment of a National Electoral Offences Commission.
The Electoral Offences Tribunal Establishment Bill is seen as critical and of significance to the amended Electoral Act 2022, sponsored by House Leader and 4 other members. It made provisions for investigation and prosecution of electoral offences towards the improvement of the electoral process for credibility.
To reform our electoral system through the Electoral Act and give Nigerians a system that is going to throw off leaders that are accountable and responsible to the yearnings and aspirations of the people.
To establish the commission that will be dedicated to the deterrence and punishment of electoral offenders.
Other bills that scaled second reading include Bill to establish Nigeria Association of Paralegals, sponsored by House Chief Whip Mohammed Tahir Mungunu, Bill seeking amendment of Pension Reform Act to exempt National Assembly Service Commission from the scheme sponsored by Olododo Cook, and Bill to amend Prohibition of Discrimination Against Persons with Disability Act to review upward the retirement age of persons with disability, sponsored by Babajimi Benson.
This same rule or law is applicable in South Africa and the United Kingdom.
This same thing is applicable teachers, judges, professors, and I can go on and on and on.
Also passed at second reading is the bill to amend Inland Fisheries Act from Dozie Nwankwo and bill to establish an independent Auditor General's office for the Federal Capital Territory from Wulioke. A motion to appraise the contributions of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, to the development of Nigeria and Nigerians was adopted during plenary.
Despite Nigeria's larger than life financial contributions to the Economic Community of West African States, the country and its citizens seem not to have benefited immeasurably from her contributions.
We want to see the unification of our own sub-region, common trade, movement. That one should be there. But as we are investing in a headquarters in Nigeria, drivers, Your Excellency, most of them are not Nigerian.
House members supported the motion from Musa Aga on the need to arrest destruction of farmlands in parts of Plateau State.
Destruction of crops on over 1,000 hectares of farmlands. The communities in Basa Jos North Federal Constituency have suffered a series of attacks.
Plenary has been adjourned to 19th July 2022.
Leader of the House of Representatives and sponsor of that bill, Alhassan Adodogwa, sheds more light on the ills the bill seeks to cure.
In the existing Electoral Act, we have not spelled out clearly some of those punishments that may be meted out on electoral offenders. So with this electoral amendment, with the update we have on this legislation, we have spelled out not only the offenses, we have also spelled out in black and white what are the punishments that should be meted on electoral offenders. For instance, the use of money openly on the day of election, or coming to campaign, or coming to the electoral polling unit with anything that is symbolic that may, in one way or the other, suggest or present as if you are campaigning on the day or at the point of voting. These are all offenses. But in most cases, you find out that in the initial Principal Act, some of these things have not been spelled out as to who does what and what will be the consequences or the punishment of such offenses. And we have also learned from other developed democracies that it's not only about offenses committed during elections. There are also offenses that can be committed even pre-election. There are also some offenses that can be committed after elections. All these things are now put together by way of having a more comprehensive, efficient, and very robust and vibrant electoral legislation. And at the end, I believe our system will be better for us.
Still on the electoral matters, the Supreme Court has struck out the suit challenging the constitutionality of Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act 2022. The seven-man panel of justices led by Justice Muhammad Musa Datijo gave the verdict in a suit in which the National Assembly is the first defendant. Judiciary correspondent Dele Atumbi has this one.
The plaintiffs in this matter challenged the constitutionality or otherwise of Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act 2022. Section 84, subsection 12 bars political appointees from being delegates or being voted for at the convention of a political party. In essence, a political appointee is expected to resign his appointment before being a delegate or to be voted for at the national convention of a political party. In determining the matter, the seven-man panel of justices, in their considered judgment, averred that the plaintiffs participated in the process of the enactment of the Electoral Act 2022. Having participated in the process of the enactment of the Electoral Act, the court observed the plaintiffs did not have the power to invoke a legal process. The seven-man panel of justices also averred that by its nature, the matter did not fall within the original or additional jurisdiction of the court. The Apex Court upheld the objection of the defendants, hence the seven-man panel of justices did not go into the merit or otherwise of the case. Since the court lacks jurisdiction and the matter adjudged as an abuse of court process, the seven-man panel of justices, in a unanimous judgment prepared and read by Justice Emmanuel Ajin, struck out the suit.
The Supreme Court have delivered their judgments, and being the Apex Court, everybody is bound by it. Unfortunately, the merit of the case was not determined. The objections of the defendant was upheld. Where the first and second defendant were held not to have sufficient locus to bring the action and to invoke the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court on the matter.
Cannot but to salute the courage, the industry of my noble lord for doing justice to this matter. Cases do come. We have filed our reaction, and my noble lords agree with our reactions to the point that this is not the kind of the matter that should be brought to the Supreme Court.
The defendant in the matter at the National Assembly, the Rivers State Government and Rivers State House of Assembly, which came in as joiners, and the Nigerian Bar Association was amicus curiae, meaning friend of the court.
And spokesman of the House of Representatives, Benjamin Kalu, has been speaking on the Supreme Court judgment and what it means for the elections.
It was unequivocally lucid and heartwarming when we received that good news. Reason being that we have always set out to have the electoral reform that will stand the test of time. And that needed the coming together of all the arms of government to play a role if that must happen. The judiciary, by that judgment, added their own brick on the wall of nation building, because they have made it obvious that this victory should be a victory for democracy, a victory for the rule of law, and that respecting the ethos of democracy, the principle of democracy, as it has to do with separation of power, is held towards our effort in advancing our democracy. They have made it clear that there are 3 lanes that leads to good governance. One is occupied by the legislature, one is occupied by the executive, the other one by the judiciary. And at no time should one cross lane to the other. What do I mean by that? That decision has re-emphasized that when it comes to legislative supremacy, the power lies with the legislature. And we are happy with it, because we never lost sleep when he appeared before the court of first instance and was also revisited during the appellate court. We had confidence that the justices of the Supreme Court are thorough, erudite scholars of our laws, and will always, at all times, have a periscopic and all-round view of the intention of the legislature while making 84-12. Whether it was first serving or whether it was for the advancement of our democracy. And all we had in mind when we made that law was the element of competitiveness and fairness, which are the characteristics of a credible election. You know, there must be accountability for you to have a credible election, transparency for you to have a credible election. But such election must be inclusive. Such election must be fair, which means every man must come to the ballot box equal. And that is what 84-12 was preaching. And I'm happy. We are happy that the Supreme Court has given it what we are calling law, res. It has been decided res judicata. It has been given a decent burial. Mr. President, in his wisdom, asked that those who were interested in running for offices to resign in view of the law that he contributed in making, because he assented to it. And in his maturity and wisdom, he said, if you want to run for an office, leave the one you're occupying now. The National Party chairman also said, the convention of the party must obey the letters and the spirit of 84-12. Anything outside that, you're on the frolic of your own. Because we knew that it will be an exercise in futility if our actions fails to match with what we believe will be the decision of the Supreme Court. Because we knew the Supreme Court understands the law and they will interpret the law having regard to the intention of the legislatures while making the law. So going forward, aspiration is good. Political office aspiration is good. But the law now is clear. This is apex court's decision. A rule of stare decisis, which is called precedence. The rule of precedent has been established. It's for the courts in Nigeria to comply, and it's for every other person to comply. Both the decided cases and the statutory provision are speaking to the same issue. So there is no other excuse. You have to resign if you want to run for a political office within the time as allowed by the Electoral Act and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The act of lawmaking can only be done by the House of Representatives and the Senate, the Parliament. And there are House rules and constitutional provisions to guide the making of new laws or amending of old laws. Laws are not amended through promises. Laws are not amended through oral engagement. There are constitutional procedures that must be complied with. And nobody said that any of the laws we have made was cast on stone. It's only the 10 Commandments that was cast on stone, which means nobody can amend it. Any law we make, we can amend, but it must go through the process, the whole 9 years of the procedure laid down for amending laws. If we want to amend 8412, it will be the House that will amend it, not Mr. Speaker, excuse me, not the Senate President. It will be the House and the Senate agreeing to amend it and going through the process.
The Supreme Court's judgment on Section 84, subsection 12, which affirms that political appointees seeking to contest elective positions must resign, has also got ordinary Nigerians talking. So you and your reps went to the streets to get their views.
They use their office again, whether you are a federal appointee or you are a minister or you are in any juicy position, you use their car, you use their fuel, the logistics, you still use the office that you are, that you get the money in the office and you will be spending it for your election, which is very, very wrong. It's part of the corruption that we kick against it.
Those in power are using one or two, let me use the word advantage. They're using the political will at their own advantage, which is not supposed to be. In as much as you are interested in politics, you are to resign and for a level playing ground for everybody to be neutral and give the opponents competitive advantage, or rather neutrality.
It will give room for a free and fair electoral process. Yes, it will give equal chance in contesting for the various political office. So that's why I'm in support of that.
It's going to strengthen the political process more.
Yes, they should resign before they contest for any appointment, before they go for any elective post. That's how it's supposed to be.
Well, that's where we leave it on you and your reps this week. But we'll see you again same time next week with another episode of the program. Let's keep the date. I'm Victor Azo. Thanks for your time.